They nailed her to my fence post on a Thursday. Didn't knock and holler, just left her hanging like a scarecrow, dripping red into the dirt, arms stretched like some desert martyr, barely breathing but breathing all the same. And right there below her busted boots was a sign nailed to the wood. Scrawled in blood and ash, "Fix her or bury her." The wind howled low that morning, like it knew what kind of trouble had come calling. Now I ain't the kind of man folks come to for healing. I bury cattlemen fences and keep to myself ever since May passed. But there she was, some poor girl with welts across her back lips, torn from gagging eyes, rolled white like she'd seen hell and maybe brought some of it back with her. She didn't speak. Not at first, just moaned quiet when I pried the nails from her hands. I carried her inside, wrapped her in an old quilt, and poured whiskey on her wounds while she screamed through clenched teeth. Didn't cry, though, not once. That's when I knew whoever did this. They hadn't broken her, not yet. By nightfall, the fever had her. She shook like a dying rabbit, teeth chattering so hard I thought they'd snap. I sat beside her all night, changing rags, spooning broth, whispering nonsense, just so she knew someone was near. Come morning, she opened her eyes, bright wild blue like mountain ice. "Where am I?" she rasped. I told her she was safe. I lied. This land don't know safety, only heat, hunger, and men with black hearts. She tried to sit up and hissed through her teeth. That's when I saw it. Burned into her left shoulder, raw and still blistered. A brand circle with a downward cross inside, like some twisted church mark ID. Seen it once before, years back, carved into the barn of a settler who vanished with his whole family outside Ash Hollow. The papers called it a cult, sheriff called it superstition, but the way this girl's eyes flinched at the sight of her own scar, I knew better. This wasn't just some beating, this was ritual. She didn't speak much that next day, just stared out the window, jaw clenched like she was listening for something the rest of us couldn't hear. I didn't press her folks like that. You don't drag answers from AIM, you wait for the dam to break. Late that afternoon, I stepped out to check the fence line, and when I came back she was gone. Door swinging in the wind, blood on the floor from reopened wounds. I followed the trail, bare feet in the dust, staggering north. Found her near the old well, curled under the wagon shed, clutching the note, the same note ID burned last night in my stove. "You kept it?" I asked. "No," she whispered. "You burned it, but it's never really gone." That's when I noticed her hands, fingers bruised from clawing through ashes. The wind howled low over the plains, carrying the scent of firewood and something else, something sour. She held the note out like a weapon, but the words had changed. No longer said "fix her" or "bury her" now. It read, "She remembers too much." That night she finally told me her name. "Call me Lark," she said, voice low, like even that name might betray her. I asked if it was her real one. She said it's the one they gave me when they took everything else. I didn't sleep much, sat in the rocking chair by the fire, shotgun across my lap, eyes on the door. At one point I saw her silhouette in the hallway, still as a scarecrow, watching me, just watching. "Couldn't it sleep?" I asked. She said, "I keep hearing it, the hammer, the nails." The breath caught in my lungs. She wasn't talking about nightmares, she remembered. I asked who did this to her. She said a name I hadn't heard in years, Reverend Silas Dunn. That name felt like a rattlesnake coiled behind my ribs. He used to run a mission way out past Granger's Ridge. Preached fire and fear. Said the world was dying, and only his chosen would be spared. Real brimstone bastard. Folks thought he died in a fire out east. Guess not. I looked at Lark and said, "You ran from him." She nodded. "No. I escaped, and he, foul, come, for me, for the others." Others, God help us, there were more. Lark told me everything by firelight, about the compound, the sermons, the cleansings. She was one of the children of fire, as Dunn called them. Orphans, runaways, and stolen girls taught to obey without question. Branded not with iron but belief, conditioned to think pain was purification, that salvation only came when you were emptied of yourself. She said the cross was the final trial. Only a few ever made it past that point. The rest, buried nameless behind the chapel. I sat there, fists clenched tight, stomach turned to ash. I'd seen evil before. Bandits, killers, war, but this was something colder. More patient, like rot that grows under the floorboards until the house gives way. "He's rebuilding," she said, somewhere close. "That note? It's a warning to others. A message." "To who?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes like storm clouds. "To you." Just then my dog Boone growled low from the porch. I stepped out with my rifle. 3 riders sat just beyond the fence line. Didn't move, didn't call out, just watched. One raised a hand and dropped something. It thunked in the dirt. A wooden cross, 6 inches tall, red ribbon tied around the middle. By the time I reached the fence, they were gone. But the message was clear. Dunn knew where she was, and now he knew where I was too. I didn't sleep after that. Didn't let Lark out of my sight either. The next morning I found another cross nailed to my barn door, this one carved rough like it was whittled in fury. Still wet with blood. Chicken maybe, maybe not. Inside my chicken coop, 3 hens lay dead, necks snapped, feathers scattered like a warning blown on the wind. I told myself this was Dunn's game. Fear before fire. He didn't send bullets first, he sent messages. Symbols, marks of ownership. Like Lark was still his. Like I was trespassing on what he believed was his sacred ground. I saddled up, rode into town. If you could call 3 dusty streets and a liquor-soaked sheriff's office of town. I needed to talk to someone, warn someone. The truth was I wasn't sure who was clean anymore. The preacher at the old church used to be a good man, but he'd been gone 3 years. The new one? Too slick, too eager to listen. I didn't mention Lark, just asked about Silas Dunn, and the moment I did, something in the man's face shifted, like a curtain dropped. He said never heard that name, but his hands were trembling as he poured the communion wine. Back at the ranch, Lark was in the barn loft, reading an old book I didn't recognize. She looked at me and said he won't stop, not till a mash or his again. I said, "Is not touching you, not while I still draw breath." She smiled, just a flicker, but her eyes stayed on the horizon like she saw something rising. A storm, not just a breeze through the canyons, but a shift in the way the air felt. Still, too still, like the land itself was holding its breath. I kept my rifle by the window. Lark stayed in the barn loft, curled beneath old quilts and saddlebags. Boone wouldn't leave her side, wouldn't even eat, just sat growling low at shadows only he could smell. That's when I saw the fire just past the ridgeline, faint orange against the night sky. Not wildfire, no smoke, just a single beacon like a flare sent straight from hell. I saddled up and rode to the bluff before dawn, keeping low. And there across the gorge I saw it, a white tent. A wagon, 5 figures kneeling in a circle. And at the center, a bell, rusty cracked, but I recognized it. That was the old mission bell from Cutter's Hollow, the church that burned 20 years ago with 30 souls inside. Dunn had been the preacher then too. Just under another name, they were rebuilding it. Right there in the dust and rock, a new church, a new order. And Lark's cross? It was just the first piece. When I returned, I found the gate open, Boone barking, bloody murder, and Lark gone. No struggle, no blood, just a single note tied to the porch rail. "She belongs to the fire, last chance, fix her, bury what's yours, or burn with it." I stood there, hands shaking, because for the first time in years, I didn't know what to do. I rode like the devil himself was nipping at my boots. Didn't stop for water, didn't stop for thought. The trail to Cutter's Hollow was near dead, grown over with chaparral and bones of old wagons that never made it through. No one rode that way anymore, not since the church burned, not since Dunn disappeared. But I knew that's where they'd taken her. That fire on the bluff wasn't just a warning, it was a signal. And Lark, she was the offering. When I reached the edge of the hollow, dawn was bleeding into the sky. The air smelled like sage and scorched blood. Their camp had moved, but the cross stood tall at the center, empty. Beside it, a basin of ash still smoking. I damn near fell to my knees, thought I was too late. Thought they'd burned her down to memory, but then I heard it. Low, hoarse behind me, a whisper, "Jake." I turned, and there she was, barefoot, bruised, alive. Shed crawled through the scrub, broke her bindings on a jagged rock-faced torn lip. Split but alive. She said they wanted me to light it myself, said if I did be free. I asked her if she believed them. She shook her head and said something ill never forget. They don't want freedom, they want faith soaked in gasoline. I wrapped her in my coat, held her up on the saddle, and we rode. Didn't matter, we're just away, but I knew Dunn wouldn't let it end there. You don't walk away from his sermons, not without fire trailing your heels. We didn't get far before the smoke found us, thick black rolling over the ridges like a curse. Boone started howling, and I knew before I turned. My ranch was burning, every beam, every rail, my father's porch, my mother's garden. All of it lit up like the 4th of July. Dunn's message was plain: if you want return or ill, take what she's standing on. I hid Lark in a stone ravine 2 miles east and rode back into the blaze, gun drawn, teeth grit. And there he stood, Preacher Dunn, atop my corral fence, arms spread like a messiah in his Sunday best, flames dancing behind him. Around him his flock, boys and women with ash smeared on their faces, eyes wild, chanting scripture twisted beyond recognition. He shouted, "This land is cursed by her sin. This house, this man, refused the word. Now it burns." I raised my rifle. He laughed, said, "Bury her, or we bury everything you've ever touched." I didn't shoot. Not yet, 'cause from behind him I saw something else. A child. A girl, no older than 10, standing beside a burning wagon, lips trembling. Lark wasn't the only one they'd taken. This wasn't just about her. It was about building a new Eden in ash and pain, and he was using children as the kindling. I waited till the flames moved west, till the camp scattered. Then I rode back to Lark, told her everything. And I said one thing I hadn't told another soul in 10 years. I've killed men before, but I never hunted one until now. We waited till night swallowed the hills whole. Lark wrapped her wrists in cloth-loaded shells into my father's old scattergun. With hands still shaking, but steady enough to kill, she wasn't a victim anymore. She was something else now. We weren't just riding back for justice, we were riding back for every girl Dunn ever broke, every child he branded unclean, every sinner he tied to a cross and called it salvation. Cutter's Hollow was asleep when we came, but the church, his rebuilt chapel of ruin, glowed like a fever dream. Lanterns flickered through stained glass colored with soot and wine. We walked through the front doors slow. No masks, no noise, just steps. Wood creaked under my boots like it remembered the last time I prayed. Dunn was there, kneeling at the altar, robe soaked in shadow. He didn't even flinch. "Said you come to bury her?" I raised my rifle. "I came to bury you." What followed wasn't a gunfight. It was judgment. Lark fired first. Blast tore through the pulpit. One of his zealots leapt from the pews, axe raised, and I dropped him clean. More poured in from the choir loft, smoke screamed splinters. I took a slug in the side but didn't fall. Wouldn't fall, not till it was done. When the shooting stopped, the pews were covered in bodies and blood. And Preacher Dunn? He was crawling toward his book, muttering scripture, lips foaming. I stepped on his hand before he could open it. Lark leaned down, whispered no more sermons, and pulled the trigger. Outside, the sky was breaking open, a new day, one without crosses, one where maybe, just maybe, what's broken could stay buried, or better yet, learn to heal. We burned the chapel that morning, watched the flames eat through the rafters, the hymn books, the last of Dunn's gospel. No headstone, no marker, just ash and silence. Lark didn't cry, not even once. But when the last beam fell, and the fire hissed down to coals, she reached for my hand, like she'd done it 100 times before, and I let her. We didn't ride far, just back to the ranch. The land was scarred, but it would grow again, like her, like me. She took to mending things, clothes, fences, my busted ribs. Started drawing birds in the dirt with her boot when she thought I wasn't looking. Said one day she might build a coop. Maybe name the chickens after Dunn's old sermons, wrath, judgment, penance. We laughed about it till the wind carried it away. Folks pass through sometimes. Drifters, widows, orphaned boys with eyes too old for their faces. Lark would offer them bread, a cot, and her silence. She didn't preach. She just listened. And somehow that did more good than any Sunday sermon I ever sat through. Me? I wrote this all down. Every lie, every truth. Not for justice, not even for vengeance, but so that if some other fool finds a girl tied to a cross with a note pinned to her chest, they'll know what to do. They'll fix her, not bury her. Because when you dig through enough blood and dirt, you don't find peace. You find people worth living for. And if you're lucky, maybe one of them decides you're worth saving too.